Popoca means to emit smoke. Smoke is just a way to incorporate so much flavor into food. We don't make traditional Salvadorian food. I grew up here, so I'm really like a student of Salvadorian cooking. Our techniques with wood fire and corn have put us on the map to be one of the best meat restaurants in America. So it's 9 a.m. We're gonna start the morning off by grinding some corn that we use for our masa, which is used for like our pupusa or tamales. This is the one we're gonna use for tamales piscas. In this big pot, we have our blue corn. It's a bolita azul from Tamoa, and it's been nixtamalized for about 12 hours. Nixtamalization helps break down the cellular walls inside the corn. I personally really like it for our mushroom pupusa. And as you can see, it's like got like a little bit of white in there, and that's what you really want. Without the nixtamalization process, your corn won't break down and you won't be able to grind it and you just won't be able to eat it. Opening a Salvadoran-inspired restaurant, I knew pupusas had to be really good here. I knew I wanted to make fresh masa. This is our molino. We have these volcanic stones that we're gonna put in the molino that's gonna grind our corn for us. This little bar right here is how I choose my grind size. So I can make it really coarse. I can tighten it to make it really fine. For the Salvadorian masa, we want a little more water content because we want it to form around a filling, and you want to be able to do that with your hands. So it just takes like a little bit of a wetter masa. So I'm gonna turn on my little water spout here and then turn on my grinder. This is like perfect right now. There's like a fine line between too wet and too dry. It just gotta be like, it has to be perfect or it's really hard to make the pupusa. We wanna incorporate any liquid evenly throughout the whole thing and to season it. So I'm gonna add salt. I think it brings out a little bit of that extra corn flavor. And that's it. It's like a really nice texture. Now it's 11:30. We're gonna move on to braising our lenguas. And I try to braise these early on in the day because they take like 6 hours to braise. We don't do anything to the tongues themselves until after they're cooked, then we'll peel them. But for now, I'm gonna build my braising liquid to braise the tongues in. I started doing this because I recently had a lengua taco that I just love so much. And I was like, why don't I ever do lengua and pupusa? Like, this is crazy, I gotta do it. Once our vegetables are like super roasted, I'm gonna add my spices. I have some coriander, some cinnamon, and some cumin. And we're gonna add that in. We're gonna roast that a little bit with our dried chilies. And then we're gonna add our salsa inglesa. And our salsa inglesa is like house-made Worcestershire, basically. Worcestershire is like something you'll see on like a lot of tables in El Salvador. Probably because it goes so well with seafood, and El Salvador is like really rich in seafood. But I use it for a bunch of other stuff. So I'm gonna let that cook down, and then I'm gonna let that reduce for a little bit. I reduce it about halfway down, and then I'll add my chicken stock. And once that's ready to go, I'm gonna pour it over the beef tongues, and then we'll braise them for 6 hours. So our pupusas, we normally only do 2 to 3 different varieties at a time. Right now we have pupusa de lengua, which is beef tongue pupusa. And then we have the pupusa de hongos, which is mushroom. Part of the reason is because I want people to order other things on the menu. And if people just see tons of pupusas, they're just gonna wanna order hella pupusas. But I want people to know more about Salvadorian food than just pupusas. We're gonna make our tamales. First, we're gonna make our sofrito, or our base for our broth. I have some onions, some celery, some garlic. I got some tomatoes and some cilantro and some cilantro stems. We have relajo here. Relajo is like a Salvadorian spice mix that is a base for a lot of sauces and broths. So we'll basically roast off the sofrito here. We're gonna add our veg stock to this, and then we're going to let that simmer. Tamales are a big staple here at Popoca, and they're a big staple in El Salvador, which is why we have them on the menu. Right now we have a tamal piscas on the menu. We basically nixtamalize our corn with wood ash. The ash helps break down the corn so that it's more digestible. So a Salvadoran tamal is different than a Mexican tamal because you're adding your masa to your broth. And as your broth cooks the masa, it starts to thicken and it becomes like almost like a little custardy. You get like a really soft, moist masa. I think with Mexican tamales, you're normally adding fat and seasoning to the masa itself, so it's a different texture. So I grew up here in California. I grew up in San Francisco and in San Jose. The first tamal I ever had was probably Mexican. And then when I had my first Salvadoran tamal, I was like, what the f is this? It was so different than what I was used to. And then I was kind of like stuck on Salvadoran tamales. So now we're gonna fill our tamales. I like to use the ice cream scoop so we get like a perfect amount in there. We're gonna fill it with a little bit of black bean. The tamal looks a little wet right now. Like you wouldn't want to eat it like that. Once you steam it, it sets even more. It'll come off of the banana leaf really easily. So our tamales are pretty popular. We end up prepping them about twice a week, sometimes 3 times, depending on how busy we are. This is my first batch of tamales that we're gonna do here. And we'll steam them for about 45 minutes to an hour. And then after that, they'll set and then we'll cool them down and then they're ready to use. Now I'm gonna brine our wings for our pollo campero so that they're ready for tomorrow for frying. There's some cumin in there, there's some pasilla negras and some puyas and some bay leaves. And brining it just really helps season the chicken all the way through, and it helps make the chicken just that much more juicy. In El Salvador, there is a place called Pollo Campero. It started in Guatemala, but it blew up in El Salvador. I wanted to put fried chicken on the menu so that I can pay a homage to that feeling of wanting fried chicken when you get to El Salvador. Like, it's a cultural thing. So now we're gonna fry our Pollo Campero. I do a double fry, so we'll fry it for about 7 minutes. So once I'm done frying off all this fried chicken, I'm gonna let them cool off at room temperature, and then we'll cool them down and they'll be ready for service. During service, we'll fry them again for about 5 minutes, and we'll top them off with a little bit of panela and some of our house spice mix, and they're ready to serve. All right, y'all, so it's 3 p.m., so it's time to start our fire. And it's gotta be ready for service, and we start service at 5:15. And because we cook with embers, I need a lot of embers. So we'll start a giant fire, and we'll start pulling embers and start warming up our plancha. Embers is a more controlled way of cooking, so I can choose how many embers I throw down. I can fan my embers to like a certain heat, and it's just an easier way to me to control the temperature of my cooking surfaces. It's 4:45. We got about 30 minutes before service. I'm gonna start shaping pupusas so we have them ready for service tonight. So I'm gonna start grinding the cheese for the filling. I have a mix of Oaxaca and Monterey, and I like the mix because Monterey is a little more oily. Oaxaca is less oily, so it helps bind the cheese. End up with like a really nice stretch on my cheese. The cheese stretch is like everything. When I know it's ready is when I can kind of pick it up and it feels kind of like I can almost like roll it into like a ball. We use a lot of cheese. I actually have lactate pills for guests if they want them. They're like, are these mints? I'm like, no, it's lactate. This is the masa we made this morning. I keep them covered with the wet towel all through service. Make sure they stay nice and moist. If I don't do that, we're gonna end up with like a really dry masa ball. So now I'm gonna form my pupusas, and I'm gonna start with pupusa de hongos. These are oyster mushrooms. I love them because they're so meaty and like juicy. We'll grill the mushrooms over the wood fire. We'll chop them up into the cheese. We'll put some blackened butter. We'll put a little lemon zest, herbs. And we just mix that into the cheese really well. Want to create like a cheese dough, essentially. And that's it. Ready to make our pupusas. I want to start with a nice moist masa, and I'm basically gonna patty it. So I'm gonna add, I know it seems like a huge cheese to dough ratio, but it's honestly what makes the pupusa so good. Even though I grew up with a Salvadorian father, like I didn't know how to make a pupusa until I was older. I went to El Salvador and people were willing to teach me. One of the best places, they were cooking over a comal. It was the hardest thing ever because they were so busy. Like they made so many pupusas in one night, and it was like my first night making them, and they were all making fun of me. It was like all women too. One of my favorite pupusas is our pupusa de lengua. I'm gonna use this yellow masa. It's a bolita amarillo. This one I start with cheese, and I kind of want to create like a little disc in my hand before I put it down. And then I'm gonna take my beef tongue, and this is the beef tongue after it's been like braised, diced, and then reduced. While these are cooking, I'm gonna grab our tamales that we steamed earlier, and I'm gonna take them, and I'm gonna put them right here, and then we're just gonna let them get nice and smoky. Fire is a big part of what we do. I try to incorporate some type of smoke or fire into most of the dishes we do here. It's something I was excited about incorporating into our food because it's so traditional and it's so authentic to Salvadoran food. We serve our pupusas with cortido. It's like a fermented cabbage. And then we also serve it with our salsa verde and our salsa roja. So as a kid growing up, this area right here where the cheese comes out and it gets really crispy, like that's what you fight for. So our restaurant has been open for a year and a half. We are pretty busy these days. Seeing all the press and recognition was surprising and very humbling and very exciting. When people come to Popoca, I really want them to be open-minded and experience something new. We don't make traditional Salvadorian food, but we are really authentic in the way that we make our food.